I ghosted my cheating wife and she had a meltdown. Now everyone's blaming me. 7 months ago I discovered my wife was having an affair with a middle-aged man. I moved out, cut off contact and filed for divorce. Just like that, 8 years of my life had been wasted and washed down the drain. At the time I was 31 and I was 33 and her drill partner, as I will call him, was almost 50. I discovered the affair by accident as a result of being in the right place at the right time. I returned from a business trip a day early and instead of calling my wife I decided to drive home and surprise her as I drove. Instead of calling my wife, I decided to drive home and surprise her. As I was driving, I noticed that my tank was almost empty, so I decided to stop at the next exit to get gas. For reference, this exit was about 12 miles from my house. I filled up and then started driving back down the road to get on the highway. Every intersection along the way had either a traffic light or a stop sign, so it took forever to get there. I arrived at one such four-way stop and had several cars in front of me. As I was sitting there waiting for my turn, I saw my wife's car coming out of a side street and then going through the intersection in the direction I was going, and I thought to myself, what the hell is she doing here? I had just talked to her a couple of hours earlier, and she had not mentioned anything about this. She didn't mention anything about it. I called her cell phone and she let it ring 4 times before she answered it. When she did, she sounded out of breath and disheveled. She asked me what I was doing and she said she was just about to call me. I told her our meetings were ending early and I was on my way home. She sounded happy to hear that and asked me if I was going to call her again. She said yes. 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 I told her I would be there within 15 minutes. I then asked where she was going, as I could see she was driving. She hesitated for a moment and then said she was just going to the store. I asked her which one. She was obviously lying, as she was now on the highway just a few hundred yards in front of me. I knew at that moment she was either cheating on me or doing something illegal. If not, why would she lie? I was going to call her out but decided to play along. To see what other lies I could catch her in, I told her I would meet her at the store and then we could go somewhere for dinner. I could tell she wasn't expecting me to say that, but she responded by saying that sounded great. I then told her I was just passing the rest area she had just passed. I told her this, as I knew it would scare the bejesus out of her when she realized I was right behind her somewhere. She told me she would wait for me in the parking lot and we ended the call as soon as she hit the gas and must have been doing over 90 as she sped away. She obviously did this to avoid me seeing her and to make sure she would arrive. She was already parked and walked over to my car. As I pulled in, she was adjusting her clothes and had her compact mirror out to check her hair and makeup as we entered the store. She said she had to go to the bathroom. I told her I did too, so we both went in to do our business. I finished and came out a few minutes later and waited there for her to come out. She stayed in there at least another 10 to 15 minutes before she came out. When she finally did, I told her I was about ready to send out a search party to look for her. She told me I was sorry I had to do a number 2. I know this is TMI, but I am explaining this because it was another lie, because I could hear the sink running the whole time she was in there. I don't think she even used the toilet and instead spent the time cleaning herself up. Cleaning herself up? Yeah, she was probably in there cleaning all the stink and cut off of her from the guy she was just with. We did our shopping and decided to get some prepared food from the store instead of going out for dinner. When we got home and started eating, I asked her more questions about her day to see what she would say. The next day, to see what she would say, she told me nothing remarkable had happened. She explained that she just went to work and came straight home. With each new lie she told, I got more and more upset but managed not to blow up on her. That night I tossed and turned trying to process what she was doing over there. I was restless and wide awake while she slept soundly like she didn't have a care in the world. It's amazing how she could do that. You would think she would be a nervous wreck, but obviously not. The next night while she was preparing dinner, I checked her cell phone but found nothing unusual. I also went online and checked our credit and debit bills but found nothing unusual. This initially gave me a sense of relief, but I realized that it didn't necessarily mean that she wasn't cheating, it just meant that she was good at hiding it. At this point, I was getting antsy, but I needed more proof, so I decided to keep investigating. In retrospect, this was definitely the right thing to do, but it was hard to keep it together and act normal. A week or so went by and everything was business as usual. Then one day she called and told me that she was going to be working a little late. Since it was her monthly closing, I didn't say anything, but I was immediately suspicious. Even though she had to work overtime on occasion, I sensed something was up. I had a strong feeling that she wouldn't be working, but instead I would find her visiting a certain person on the street where I had seen her the previous week. I arrived around 4:30 and drove up and down the street a couple of times but didn't see anything, so I decided to go back out to the main intersection and park at the McDonald's to see if I could see her driving by. 4:45 p.m. She drove up to the intersection and turned down the same street. I gave her 10 minutes and then walked down the street to see where she was. I saw her car parked in the driveway of one of the houses next to a new Ram pickup truck. I thought long and hard about going up and knocking on the door, but my inner self told me not to as I was on the verge of exploding at that moment. Instead, I took pictures of her car at the house and then went home. When I got there, I looked up the address to get the name of the homeowner. As it turned out, the owner was the co-owner of a company that did business with the, according to various websites, he was either 49 or 50 years old and had lived at that address since 2009. I later found out he was divorced with 2 college-aged kids. When she arrived home that evening, she was carrying bags of takeout from my favorite Chinese place. She greeted me with a big smile and came over for a kiss. I tried to get away with it. I gave her an air kiss, but she insisted on a real one. Listen, guy, there is no way in hell I would have given her a kiss after where she just came from. While we were eating, I told her I had to go out to a client location the next day and wouldn't be home until the evening. After hearing this, she started asking me for details like where I was going, when I was leaving, and when I would be back. I knew she wanted this info so she could plan another meetup with her drill partner, and it really pissed me off. After I told her the details, she told me not to stop and get anything on my way home because she would have dinner waiting for me. The thought of that made me sick, but I knew that dinner was not going to happen because I had other plans for her. I of course had no client visits scheduled that day, but I did plan to visit her drill partner's house that day. If I saw her car parked there again, I planned to call and confront her, then walk out. Unfortunately or fortunately, things worked out as I had predicted, and I found her car parked in the same spot as the day before. So I went home, made a hotel reservation, packed my clothes, and then called her. To my surprise, she answered right away and was in a cheerful mood, as if she was so happy to hear from me. I asked her what she was doing, and she said she was just sitting in a conference room working on a spreadsheet. I told her she was lying. I went on to explain that I knew exactly where she was, who she was with, and what she was doing. I said she was either screwing him right now or she had just finished screwing him, just like she did yesterday and just like she did the week before. She didn't say anything while I was talking to her. I told her I was done with her and informed her that I wouldn't be home for a while and that I was going to call her back. I told her I was done with her and I told her I wouldn't be home when she got there. After that, I gave her a few harsh words and ended the call. As you can see, this guy doesn't pull any punches. He's straight to the point and he knows what he's asking for. A good 20 minutes went by before she started calling and texting me like a crazy person. You know why it took her 20 minutes? Because as soon as you hung up with her, she turned around and told her affair partner, "Oh my God, my husband knows about us. And for the last 20 minutes she's been texting and calling me like a crazy person. Oh my God, my husband knows about us." And for the last 20 minutes she's been cooking up something in her head, some kind of excuse that she's going to give you, and now she's ready to talk to you. He goes on. He says in the 24 hours that followed, she must have left me 50 voicemails and sent me over 100 text messages. You should have blocked her. The messages were all over the board. First she said it wasn't what it looked like and she could explain it. Then after several hours of these messages, she transitioned to crying and telling you that she's not a good person. After I checked into the hotel that evening, I stopped to have a few drinks at the bar to take the edge off. I didn't have much in my stomach, so the alcohol really hit me. I then went up to my room to call our parents to inform them of what had just happened. They reacted with complete horror and couldn't believe that she would do something like that to me. They thought we had the perfect marriage, but that obviously wasn't the case. I ended up staying in hotels for the next few months as I went through the divorce process, during which time I avoided all contact with my wife and didn't tell anyone except my parents where I was. I didn't want to risk anyone telling her. Everyone except her closest friends were on my side, but almost everyone told me I should at least meet with her to give her a chance to explain and apologize to me in person. From the messages she left me and the reports I got from mutual friends, I knew she wasn't handling things well. Joined in to gang up on me. They went as far as telling me that if anything happened to her over this, it would be my fault. Once they pulled that, I politely told them to mind their own business and block her numbers. Even her parents turned on me, which came as a shock. I was really disappointed in them, as we had always had such a close relationship before this. Well, her parents are going to be loyal to her in the end, so you always have to remember that even if you have a great relationship with them, most of the time they are going to be loyal to her. Too luckily my family and close friends were on my side and supported me through this whole ordeal. Long story short, I stayed out of contact and let my lawyer handle everything. My wife tried to fight the divorce and offered me just about everything I wanted to stay married to, but I was done once she realized that wasn't going to happen. She finally signed the paperwork and things moved quickly after that. Our divorce became final last month. It was a clean break and I am now a free man. I don't want to give you the wrong impression that I was a tough guy the whole time, because I wasn't. 8 years is a long time to spend with someone. I spent many sleepless nights and had several breakdowns along the way, but I have worked through all of that now. My wife still thinks there is a chance we will get back together one day. She says we are meant to be together and destiny will bring us together. And destiny will bring us back together just like it brought us together in the first place. I can tell you with 100% certainty that will never happen. She still texts me 3 to 4 times a week telling me what she's up to and how much she misses me and how sorry she is. I probably should have blocked her, but I kind of enjoyed hearing about her struggles and what a great man I am. As for her drill partner, I can't say too much there other than my lawyer is working on something right now. I'm working with his attorney on something right now. I'll just leave that there and let you fill in the blanks. Now listen to this. My ex told me he meant nothing to her and she cut off all contact with him, but I really don't care anymore. So this is what happened to me and how I handled it. Not saying what I did was good or bad or right or wrong. I shared this so other men know they are not alone in this struggle. Many of us have been through the same and come out better. On the other hand, and that is the end of the story. Now for the top comments. The first one is from a woman and she says, you admit you still read her text but refuse to meet with her. Why do that unless you are trying to destroy her mentally? What she did was wrong, but she is human like we all are. She goes on, she says, I had a boyfriend in college that I was in love with and planning to marry. He broke up with me over a date I went on without telling him. He found out and never spoke to me again. I know what I did was wrong and I had no intention of ending our relationship. She says, I never got over it, mostly because of the way he handled things. No, you never got over it because you cheated on him and he won't forgive you. Next, here's an answer from a guy. He says, always do what is best for you and stop listening to others. If you have already made up your mind that there is no going back, then why waste time meeting with her? I went through a divorce years ago and it was a total mess. If I could do it over again, I would handle things the way you did. Yeah, when you go through it, it really simplifies things. A law doesn't. And finally, we got another response from a woman. She says, you don't know her a damn thing. Closure is for the cheater while the betrayed gets nothing out of it. I granted my cheating husband one last meeting. Looking back now, I wish I hadn't, as all it did was make him feel better and made me feel better. Was to make him feel better and make me feel like. She says, story 2, wife asked me to open up our marriage, so I made her regret everything. A year later now she's begging me to close it back up and live happily ever after with her, but I'm not interested. I married my wife 2 years after we both graduated from college. We were the typical cliche couple. She was popular with everyone while I was kind of a loner with a small friend group. Still, we came together. She had taken all my firsts. I thought our life was perfect. I would go to work and come home to a nice dinner and a happy wife. She would always ask me to buy her gifts like a purse or some jewelry, and I would be happy to buy it for her. I consider this to be the way my wife and I express our love for each other. Our bedroom life was also great and we both slept contentedly, but nothing could have prepared me for the day my wife revealed a terrible secret to me. It was supposed to be a normal Monday, but I noticed that my wife had a new boyfriend. It was supposed to be a normal Monday, but I noticed that my wife was ignoring me in the morning. I just thought she was tired and went to work, but when I got home she immediately told me to sit down because we needed to talk. She had gone on a business trip last week and had done something terrible. My heart dropped to my stomach when she said that she had slept with a man. I asked her in a shaky voice, did you really cheat on me? And she said with a straight face, no, I didn't cheat on you, it's different. Then she started explaining about how open relationships are really popular nowadays and she wants to do a similar thing. I asked her why this wasn't enough for her and she straight up told me no. She said she wanted the same freedom she had in college. She assured me that she still loves me but will leave me if I don't agree to this. Apparently she had already slept with someone to try and get me to accept her offer because it could undo the past. Because she could undo the past, the co-worker she slept with on the trip was going to be her lover, whether I wanted it or not. At that point I was still madly in love with her, so I did everything I could to keep her close, including agreeing to an open relationship. Of course I made some rules. We can't bring our other partners into the house I bought for the two of us, and we won't tell each other who we are sleeping with. I also deleted the co-worker information my wife gave me. I didn't want to drown myself in anxiety. The first month was the worst. I was constantly thinking about where she was and who she was sleeping with. I even begged her not to go on a trip, but she said I was just doing things as we agreed. She stopped crying and left. I was still hoping she would realize how much love I had for her, give up this folly and come back to me. Oh, how naive I was. At the end of the month she was happier than she had ever been. That really broke my heart, as my wife was sleeping with other men while I was crying with other men while I cried myself to sleep every night. My love for her vanished. Well, enough was enough. I thought, if she is happy, why should I be sad? That night I went to a club for the first time in years. Luckily, the first woman I approached responded well and we went back to her place. Unfortunately, it felt terrible for me. I still love my wife somewhere in my heart, so sleeping with someone who wasn't her didn't feel good at all. I even threw up after deciding there and then that I wasn't going to force myself to do anything I didn't like. Something I didn't like, so instead I rekindled my old hobby of gaming. It was honestly amazing. I turned our basement into a man cave and would always play for an hour or so before going to sleep. I made a Discord account and made a lot of friends online. I also met a wonderful woman named Cecilia online. She was really nice and I was able to open up to her. I confessed my feelings about the situation my wife had put us in. She had destroyed the love we had built and there was nothing I could do about it. Cecilia didn't judge me or my wife and just comforted me while we spent time together. Cecilia didn't judge me or my wife and just comforted me while we spent time together. We even met in real life and got together. I was torn between Cecilia and my wife. I still loved my wife deep inside and hoped she would leave her lover, but I no longer felt the nausea of sleeping with other women. Eventually Cecilia managed to get me to move on. I no longer cared about my wife's day, no longer asked her out for dinner, and no longer asked if she was okay. A burden had just been lifted off my chest. This lasted for about 7 months and it marked the 1-year mark of our open relationship. But my wife and I had been in a relationship for over a year and my wife had never been in a relationship for over a year. I had noticed that she had been staring at me a lot lately and also watching my actions for the past few weeks. I just thought it was because her lover had left her, but I was wrong once again. My wife asked us to talk when I came back from work one day, but this time she looked horrible compared to how she looked before. She had dark circles under her eyes and a pale complexion. I asked her in a blunt tone, "What do you want?" "I have things to do, so say them quickly." She flinched and started to cry. She talked about how much she loved me and how her love had only grown in the past year. Meanwhile, she thought that I was drifting away from her and had already left her in my mind. I simply told her, "Yes, you are right. I am finally happy that my life does not revolve around you anymore." That was obviously the wrong thing to do. She cried even harder and tried to hug me, but I moved out of the way. She said, "How could I do this to her?" I calmly reminded her that she was the one who started this and I was just following in her footsteps. At this point, I was too tired to listen to any more of her gaslighting, so I just went downstairs and started playing. I slept in the basement that night to give my wife some space. The next morning, I woke up to find my wife cooking a lot of food for breakfast. She said it was all for me. This was strange, as we have been making our own food for the last year. Nevertheless, I ate it as she had already made it, but asked her not to do it again. The next weekend I was just relaxing in the living room when my wife walked in all dressed up. She said we should go out together for an expensive dinner. I said I am not interested in that. She can go with someone else. She started crying again. She asked me if I didn't love her anymore and I just accidentally blurted it out, "Not really." Her face turned red and I thought she was going to get angry, but she just sat down and told me that she wanted to end our relationship, that she was the one who first suggested it, that she had the right to do so, that she had noticed me talking to another woman a lot and was jealous of me. She tried to explain that she was unsatisfied with her lovers, but I thought back to her happy expression after the first month, and I finally realized what had happened. My wife wanted to make me jealous, but now she was jealous of me for finding happiness outside the sham of marriage. Sleeping with other men did not give her the validation she wanted. I told her that I was happy with Cecilia and that she should also find a new lover, and that if she couldn't do that, then we should get a divorce. I would be happy to give her half my money if she did that, but I would not get back into a real relationship with her. Our marriage was lost the day she decided to sleep with another man. Story 3, my wife cheated on our anniversary with her best friend's husband. Hey Reddit, I never thought I'd be here, but I need to get this off my chest. This is a throwaway account for obvious reasons. Here's the story of how I discovered my wife was cheating on me on our anniversary of all days. My 34M wife 32F and I have been married for 7 years. We have 2 beautiful kids ages 5 and 3. For the most part our marriage has been greater, so I thought last month she was cheating on me with her best friend's husband. been greater, so I thought last month we celebrated our STH. Wedding anniversary. I planned a romantic weekend getaway to a cabin in the mountains. It was supposed to be just the two of us, no kids, no distractions, just quality time together. In the weeks leading up to the trip I noticed she was acting distant. She was always on her phone, giggling at messages and being secretive about who she was talking to. When I asked her, she brushed it off, saying it was just friends from work. Fast she said it was just her friends from work. Fast forward to our anniversary weekend, we got to the cabin and everything seemed perfect at first. But she was glued to her phone the whole time. I tried to ignore it, thinking maybe she was just having a hard time unplugging from work. The second night she fell asleep with her phone unlocked. I know it's a violation of privacy, but my gut was screaming at me that something was wrong. I picked up her phone and found a series of texts between her and me. She was laughing at me, and she was talking to her boyfriend. I found a series of texts between her and a guy named Brian. The texts were explicit, leaving no doubt that they were having an affair. They even joked about meeting while we were supposed to be on our anniversary trip. Here's where it gets worse. I recognized the phone number. Brian wasn't just some guy from work, he was my wife's best friend's husband. They had been coming over for BBQs, double dates, and our kids' birthday parties for years. I felt sick. I didn't confront her right away because I didn't want to ruin the weekend. Instead, I quietly took screenshots of their conversations and sent them to myself. When we got home, I confronted her. She broke down in tears, admitting everything. They had been sneaking around for months, using every excuse in the book to get together. She said she was sorry and begged for forgiveness, but I was too hurt to think straight, to add salt to her wound. My best friend called me the next day. Apparently she found out too and wanted to make sure I knew what was going on. It turns out her affair had been going on right under our noses. Even while we were all hanging out together as couples, I took some time to process everything and decided to take a break. I moved in with my brother for a while to clear my head. We've been going to marriage counseling since then, but I don't know if I can ever trust her again. I want to trust her again. Our kids are my top priority and I am trying to keep things as normal as possible for their sake, but inside I am a mess. I loved her more than anything and this betrayal has shattered me. Has anyone here been through something similar? How did you cope? Is it possible to rebuild trust after something like this? Any advice would be appreciated. Little update. Hey everyone, as you all know, this just happened last month. Since then I have been avoiding any conversation with her that isn't related to the marriage. She's been avoiding any conversation with me that isn't about the kids. She's been blowing up my phone, telling me how much she loves me and begging me to come back home. She says there's something important she needs to tell me face to face. Honestly, I'm not ready to face her yet. The pain is still too raw. We tried going to marriage counseling, but I stopped after only 2 sessions. It was too overwhelming for me. I visit my kids almost every day and we spend time together, but I can't bring myself to go in the house. Then yesterday I got an unexpected text from her best friend. She said she needed to talk to me urgently about something I don't know yet. Now I'm torn. Should I hear her out or just walk away for good? I'm not sure what to think and I'm honestly scared of what else I might uncover. Thanks to everyone who has offered advice. I appreciate it. I'll update you all soon.